I started to come to Singapore to study when I was 7 years old. So what would happen is that I would wake up like 4, 5 a.m. in the morning. My mom would shake me awake and then push me on a school bus. The bus would go through customs. I had to go down, chop my passport, and then I would go to school. And then after that, I had to do the same thing on the way back. So I would come home typically 8, 9 p.m. I didn't move to Singapore until I was like 18 years old in Polytechnic. Then I lived with my aunt for a while. Then I eventually rented my own place. It was really the difference between me and my friends. First off, but that was what I felt. But I think a lot of my peers don't really care or really go and highlight the fact that I'm Malaysia, except when I speak Chinese. 因为我马来西亚腔调有点强了，所以他们有时候会笑我，因为我讲话像马来西亚人了。Then that means I speak like when I speak Chinese, it's very clear that I speak with very strong accent. But apart from that, it was more like shared experiences that I did not have. For example, like when we were 18, a lot of my friends in Singapore, the guy friends all went to national service. I was actually called up to do national service in Malaysia, but I just keep deferring and postponing it because of my studies, and then eventually they abolished it. So I didn't end up serving, but I've heard enough stories from my guy friends in Singapore that I probably, if I had to, right, I could fake that I did NS. I have enough stories, right? I collected enough stories. I can fake NS identity, NS is national service. Yeah.
And was animation something that was already very prominent for you when you were young?
So I always loved watching cartoons. I always loved to draw. But it was really in secondary school then, like I had a good friend of mine, his name is Yihua, and we always draw together. So things like our social studies textbook, for example, we would vandalize the pictures of real life leaders of Singapore and Malaysia, and we would draw things on top. And that was really fun for me, like the idea of using drawing to tell stories, even though there was already a story underneath, as in the photograph story, to like for example, if Lee Kuan Yew was doing this, there was one picture that we did, and then we just drew like a walk and then some spatulas, and we did like Ali Char Kway Teow, all that. I mean, all due respect to Lee Kuan Yew, I'm not sure. Yeah, there was a pose where he did that, and then we drew that, and it was a funny thing,
Yeah.
So that made it very clear to me that
Like filling in the blanks, right?
Yeah. It's like recontextualizing things with drawing, the power of drawing, and the power of drawing to tell stories. That was really very prominent then.
Did you try to make it viral? Because I've interviewed artists who say, oh, I love drawing so much, I would create comics, and then I would start renting it to my students and make it into a tiny business while I was in school.
I never did that because I never had a good business sense. Even now, like that's one of my weaknesses. But I remember there was a classmate that I had, and this might be, I guess, not safe for work, but he realized that me and my friend Eva were good at drawing. So what he wanted to do was to draw pornographic pictures. So he said, I will draw the disgusting bits. You just draw the face and make it look nice because you can draw the face
Is
nicely.
it disgusting though? I don't know. That's debatable.
What do you mean disgusting?
I don't know. I mean, it's pornography. It's not really disgusting per se.
Yeah, but I mean, at the time we were like,
yeah.
14, 15 years
True.
old.
Everything disgusting.
Yeah, there was a potential business partner waiting for me, but I just said no to that. So that didn't end up happening. Yeah. Very enterprising.
Yeah,
very enterprising.
If I made it big.
Yeah.
Very different trajectory. And Ruiming, I understand that the 1997 economic crisis had quite a large impact on your family life growing up. Could you share a bit about that?
Yeah, so I think that was the peak of my dad's career. I think after that he never really earned as much as he did again. I mean, I want to disclaim because a lot of people, because I know of people whose parents earn like quite big bucks, but my dad never really. So my dad, I think the most he earned at a job was $4,000, which sounds a lot for his time, but I do know of like people who were parents who earn like 10, 20K in 997, which is quite crazy lah. But I think the impact that brought upon my family was that my family went through a period of like very large financial stress because my family actually bought an investment condo. It was way out of their means. Like they should not even. I mean, based on like conservative investing, right? Like they should not even have bought the condo because my dad, the highest he earned was 4K. Then my mom, the max she earned was 2005 after working for 30 years lah. So it's quite insane lah, right? So when that happened, and my dad got retrenched, and a few months later, my mom also got retrenched. So we actually went for like a long period of time without job. And actually, that was when the family started to scale back on things we used to enjoy lah. So like, for example, I mean, my dad had to not like sell his car. There were like things that, I mean, there were toys I wanted. Of some very entitled, yeah, but the toys I wanted, you know, obviously I could not have. They scaled back a lot of tuition stuff, and I think that was the moment I realized like, well, actually, yeah, I mean, that was probably like my first real encounter with like money on a larger sense, how it can affect one's lifestyle. Oh my god, let me mute this.
Don't worry.
Sorry.
No worries.
Okay, I muted it. Yeah, I have muted it.
Do you feel
that
that
was your first foray like Woke Salaryman?
No, I was not Woke Salaryman.
But you're just unhappy at the fact that, hey, why I have less toys?
Yeah.
So you understood like gratification was put aside for now.
Yeah.
Right.
and
Yeah,
while
but
Go on.
sorry. Yeah, you go ahead. Yeah.
And while this was going on, I understand you were also blogging and writing like gossipy articles in school.
I wasn't. So that was 1997. I was only primary school. I only started blogging in like 2002 when I entered secondary school. And I found it like, in a way, it's like a power play. I felt like, you know, by being the school's like publisher on like gossip and like stupid observations, you kind of attract attention in that way. In a very
you wielded social power.
Yeah, I wielded social power. Like, hey, Ruiming Goh about me, So that was my first foray into writing and realizing that, hey, actually, I can be quite an entertaining writer. Yeah.
So you had a blog that like people would read.
Yeah.
So at its heyday, what was your traffic like? Do you remember?
Not that high. Maybe like 200 to 300 page views.
That's still quite a lot.
Yeah. For a small school blog, it's not bad. Where it's like a very niche publication. Like, so for example, if you do like, have you been to Singapore?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like the Jurong East Times. Then Jurong East Times got 300 clicks, but this is like the Commonwealth Secondary School Times, and then it had 300 clicks. Yeah, which I felt like, yeah, it was quite decent. Maybe it's like a 10% penetration rate of the school at that time.
So it was all students from your school who were coming in.
Probably
and leaving comments as well.
Principals.
Yeah. Maybe teachers and principals, they say like, oh my god, look at this guy. He make fun of our. I mean, in retrospect, I should not have done it. It was very childish of me. So.
Yeah, but you were a child then. So
yeah, but I was a child.
Childish
yeah. So it's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
And at what point do you decide that you wanted to make it a career?
Wow, actually, back in 2006. I felt like, I mean, there are all these like prominent bloggers, like, you know, Xia Xue in Singapore. Like, there was the whole Gush Cloud, Naf Neng kind of people. So actually, but then I actually felt like it's too late for me to maintain a blog because these people already came before already. So I should just fall in line because I failed. I didn't make it. People capitalized. My content just wasn't good enough. Right.
So this was the era of bloggers, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was like before influencers were called influencers, and then you got this like quick social media stuff.
Yeah.
It was like blogspot.com, WordPress.com,
exactly.
Tumblr, you know.
I got pretty discouraged, and I figured like, I should just be a journalist instead. Don't write about this blog. Write for a publication, just write about the news. Don't write about like opinions and stuff, because I felt like back then journalism was a more viable career than creating content or blogging. That time no one say content. Blogging, yeah.
So you end up going to the Polytechnic and Wei Choon followed you soon after. So how do you two meet?
Yeah, we actually met in the same poly. Yeah. So Wei Choon was this funny guy from the other cohort. And he would do, I just remember during year 3, we had internships, and there was this option to do internships at the school. And
because we were in the same year but different cohorts.
It's hard to explain.
So it's like A and B, then we will study the set A module, then they will take the set B module.
Yeah, then we switch.
And then the next half of the year we
do
will
internship.
Switch. So A will do B, B will do A. So he's in A and B. Right?
Yeah.
But we met because I was working on my internship, which was an internal internship with the school. So I was working for the school newspaper, the school publications, and then he was writing for the school publication.
And I had a few friends who retained. So but when I visited them, Wei Choon was there. And I remember like Wei Choon, the first time I met Wei Choon was doing like some handstand.
I was doing handstand in the office. Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, I was like, oh, actually, yeah, this guy quite cool. Can do a handstand. I think that's the first impression I had of him.
And those were simpler days. I
Yeah.
just do handstand.
I
And
just
people,
do a handstand
people found
cool.
it cool.
Yeah.
I wish it was so easy nowadays.
Although I think I was probably the only weirdo thinking it was cool.
No, got others.
You think so?
There's a
Yeah.
whole bunch of weirdos that were impressed that I could do handstand.
Oh, well done.
Actually, I used that tectic many times to great success.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you only work with like guys?
Yeah, I work with guys.
Yeah,
They work with girls.
Oh,
I intended it to work with girls, but it never quite worked.
I see.
I checked out a whole bunch of weird dudes.
I see. Okay, so you're watching this. Don't do handstand if you want to try girl.
But who knows? Maybe it'll change. Maybe there'll be a TikTok thing like hashtag handstand, and then all the handstand dudes.
Yeah.
I was doing it too early.
You're ahead of the time.
Yeah.
And I understand that you guys were doing stupid stuff together. So I heard one Wei Choon say this before.
Oh, extremely stupid. Like my first memory of Ruiming actually was that for no reason, I don't understand who does this and why we did it. But it was like 10 p.m. at night, and he's like, hey, you want to go and throw plastic bags and water down because our school was on the 10th floor of this tall building. So hey, you want to go and get a plastic bag filled with water and throw it down? And I'm like, okay, sure. Like, I didn't know this was a thing, but let's do it. And it was very fun. So you run to the tap, fill it just with plastic bag, fill it with water, tie it up, then we'll throw it down. And then we'll hit these storage tanks at the bottom and it'll go boom, 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 boom.
It was damn loud.
And it was very fun. I don't even know why it's fun. Probably.
I remember the first time I did it. The first time I did it was in primary school. Oh. And I was marveling at like how something so soft and so like
water and bag.
Water and bag can
cause such great
damage, and make such a big sound.
Right.
Yeah, somehow I decided to
get people to do it.
Discover the joy.
So that was my first memory of kind of hanging out with him.
Yeah.
And you guys didn't get in trouble with that?
No lah, I think it's okay lah. I think the Ngee Poly, the Poly security guard wasn't that.
I think smoking is worse.
Smoking is worse.
Yeah. And I think Wei Choon, you wanted to make films about Singapore when you were in Poly.
No, not quite in Poly, but definitely in uni. Because in Poly, I was really into becoming an animator and working in Japan to make animes. I was really deep into anime at the point of time. So the phase to really want to do Singapore animation came later when I started then reading up about the more nuanced animation history. So not just anime, not just what was popular at the time. I read a lot about animation history, and I wanted to express locality through film. So I realized there was not a lot of films about Singapore that really showed what Singapore was like, and I wanted to do that. So actually I did it as my master's. My master's thesis actually for animation was that I wrote about expressing Singapore national identity through animation, and doing this as a non-Singaporean because I'm Malaysian, So it was kind of like an outsider, insider kind of thing. I've been here a long time. I'm technically an outsider. What is it like, and how would I capture the real essence of what Singapore is like in a film? That was my dream for quite a while. Yeah.
I get the feeling that you are not afraid to challenge what is the commonly said, if you will. Is that something that I'm getting right? Like you're not afraid to just call out what you see, rather than being politically correct.
Call it out, but nowadays, now that I'm trying to pay back a mortgage and then I'm thinking about maybe marriage and children and things like that.
You cannot say maybe.
Well, it is maybe that.
All right.
My fiance won't get upset at me for saying that because we talked about it. I would need to settle my finances first, which kind of is why I got interested in finance. Started asking him about it because I realized very early on that in Singapore it's not a great place to do art about Singapore, because if you want to be truthful, you want to get some of the real juicy stuff, the good and the bad, the yin and the yang, which is the very important for any genuine and honest expression. You will not be able to get government funding and there's not a lot of other funding sources in Singapore to do that. So I am not born into great wealth and privilege. My family would not have been able to support me just experimenting and expressing myself through animation. So I need to first find my own footing and make my own privilege so that I can then dedicate the next few years of my life to take a long sabbatical and then just make stories about Singapore or the truth that I'm living in without anyone supporting me and possibly censoring me. That's kind of my own. Yeah.
I imagine, Wei Choon, when you graduated, that you weren't not quite of the mindset of I will never let anything sully my art. Would that be right
to
say?
Yeah, I was super staunch and because I wanted to be an animation for a very long time. Actually, when I was in poly, I was just dreaming about doing none of this mass comm stuff and just doing animation. And I remember telling myself at one point, so naive, like, looking back, like, so two statements that I kind of told myself. I told myself, if I could earn $3,000 a month, I would do whatever it is the job is, animation wise. If I could just earn $3,000 a month and then just doing animation, I would do it. Do whatever it is, I'll do it. Which is very naive first off, because like animators that work in anime, for example, a lot of them don't earn that much in the first place. And to earn less than $3,000 in Singapore can be quite difficult, especially if you want to maybe start a family or have a mortgage going on. And then the other thing I told myself was that if I ever lost my passion for animation, I might as well kill myself, because that was my only identity, or I defined it as such. And it's a very, very naive thing to say, because gradually as I went to uni and I found out that there are other ways to tell stories that were a bit more efficient, because animation requires a lot of manual labor to create. Even nowadays, with a lot of technological advancements that make it very easy for singular people to make their own animation, it still requires a great deal of work. And for example, we do comics now. Comics is an easier way to do it. I mean, it still requires a great deal of effort, but if I want to do, and I'm working on some stories right now on my own that I haven't really delved into properly, but I would do it primarily in comics. And when it takes off, then I'll get investors and then I'll get somebody to animate it. I won't be doing it myself individually. Not efficient enough. Yeah.
I imagine that, like you said earlier that animators don't even earn 3,000, but when you graduated, you had earned 20,000 in debt. So how do you think about dealing with that debt?
So it was 25,000 Singapore dollars. That was my debt to my university. And that was the wake-up point. I mean, we're called the Woke Salaryman, not because we're trying to tack on to the social justice wokeness movements in the West or whatever. It's just literally, for me, I woke up to the fact that I'm an adult now. I have real expenses. I have real life problems, real adult problems, which are money related, that I need to sort out. So it was a wake-up point when I looked at my bank account. Wow, my net worth is minus $25,000. Like, it's a great Louis C.K. joke. He says, I'm like when you have that kind of debt, right, you're not even broke. Like, I need $25,000 to be officially broke and have $0. I have less than zero. And one of my favorite jokes from Louis C.K., he said, if something's free, I can't afford it because I have negative money. I thought that was really funny and it related very hard to me. So that was my wake up point, really. And what I did first off was to ask this guy what to do, because he, I think, woke up earlier than me. And it was a very interesting incident that made him wake up. And I knew that this guy know a lot about stocks and investments. So I just kept asking him, this is before we started working, just what do I invest? How to invest? Which brokerage? How do I even sign up for?
I think it was even before we joined Mothership, right?
Before. I started asking.
It was 2016, I would say.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think 2016, yeah.
I think you also read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which had an impact on you too.
Yes, Rich Dad Poor Dad was great because it was so easy to understand, because it just basically communicated the fact that the biggest takeaway from me from Rich Dad Poor Dad is just mindset is extremely important, because that is the premise of it, that he has a rich dad and a poor dad. And if you read, actually the poor dad is a very, very intelligent, very well-studied, well-read person who is very smart.
Intellectual, right?
Super intellectual. So I related to that because I just had a master's degree, but I'm broke. So that one hit very hard. And I think a lot of people in my generation. Yeah.
That's funny. So in university, they never talk about the finances. They just talk about the art itself. As opposed to
they did. There was one module called professional practice. I mean, they're trying, right? I can't blame them for not teaching me this stuff also. Like, people like to blame universities, but I also think it's about hunger. And if you're hungry, you will just go and find these things. But I wish somebody really sat us down and said, do you understand that as artists, right, the odds are that you are not going to be doing this when you graduate. And I think for my batch, it seems to be the case where I think more than half of the graduating batch is not doing, art or animation related stuff, which is a bit bleak, but I mean, they're all right. They still got a university degree.
Yeah.
But they tried, but I don't think they really got to the nub of it. And if I could, I would go back there and teach people, and it would just be not even like, so the class that I was talking about, they taught you stuff like how to write contracts, how to invoice, how to look out for things here and there when it comes to freelancing and things like that. But I would just have a wake-up module, like just to, every week I will come in and I'll destroy your fantasies about art by forcing you to look at the bleak future that statistically awaits you, because for art, it tends to be like
Yeah,
that.
but don't you think like school should be a place? I mean, school is often a place that the people that teach there can escape the realities of the
I don't
world
think
outside.
so.
You don't
I
think
don't think for university. I think for university, actually, right, in my opinion, the greatest thing I took away from university was a way of thinking, the way of being critical, that everything you say can and will be subjected to arguments.
Yes.
And in that argument, in that crosswords, when stone meets stone, metal meets metal,
Yep.
everybody gets sharper. So challenging and facing hard truths is very important in universities. I just hate this recent thing. It seems to be in university where people demand safe spaces.
Yeah.
Safe spaces are important to not have people be harassed, but your ideas and your ideas are absolutely and should never be sacred enough that I can't argue with you about your ideas in an objective manner.
Yeah.
So I also didn't like a lot of what university, especially in the more liberal places, are like.
Yeah, I just feel like, I mean, university culture tends to be a lot more liberal these days.
Yes.
I feel like if you
Yes.
go and talk about practical stuff,
Yeah.
like people will rage at you because
Yeah. That's why I'm not doing it.
yeah.
Because there's a liability that I might be cancelled, our page might all be cancelled.
and also like there's the argument, are the people in uni, are they like qualified to talk about the more practical things, I mean, I mean, not maybe animation, there are maybe they're industry professionals, right? But I mean, in other fields, they are like academics that have never worked out in the
yes,
working
that's
world
very true. Yes.
Then you want to talk about money. Actually, they'll more likely they talk about ethics and
there definitely is a coral reef of academia, I believe, not in all industries. I'm talking from my experience, and there is a thing where people just do stay in the coral reefs all the time, so it's hard for them to even understand that there might be this thing outside. So maybe let's not call it teach. We don't teach, but we maybe have professionals come in and tell stories about how messed up the industry can be. I just think that bleakness was very important for me. And I always wish that was, I always wish I had my face shoved in that bleakness a bit more. I felt like I would have speeded my journey a bit.
The danger is like, the saying like, what doesn't kill you stronger?
Yeah, but it might kill you.
Yeah, but
then you die.
Yeah, you tell some people at that stage, right, they might just, I give up my dreams.
That's true.
Then university got no revenue.
That's true.
Then they cannot make money.
Yeah.
Then they shut down.
Yeah, that's very true. Also.
Yeah.
So do you feel that? So do you feel that bleakness as well, Ruiming, when you graduated? Was there a distinction that your illusion shattered once you graduated and had to find a job?
I actually, so I studied in Australia. I went to Melbourne Uni where I learned criminology and communications. So criminology was always like my backup plan. So I felt like, if my media career failed, right, I just be a policeman. And,
it's very different.
There'll be some. No, actually, it's quite similar in a way because both require like empathy and understanding of greater society. So when you study criminology, I think one of the things that they say is like crime is defined by what society. I can't remember the saying. Crime is defined by what society does not like hates or does not want to do. So, and in some ways, content creation, you need to understand what it's all about understanding society and what are the like needs of society as well. And obviously, it's a pretty loose connections, but by understanding like basic human psychology, their motivations, the different theories, there's actually a lot in common. Yeah. But going back to the question, I didn't really feel the same sense of bleakness. Maybe it was because that when I was in university, I was surrounded by a lot of wealthier friends. So when they went out, they all got jobs like straight away. And then for me, I scored like quite a decent job because like my uni was paid for with a scholarship. Yeah, so that spot was always like guaranteed for me. So I got this job where I was paid 2007 at 25, which isn't a lot, but I felt like, hey, actually they paid for my scholarship. And yeah, I mean, all things considered, minusing away debt is actually a pretty good deal.
But you did get quite disillusioned later on.
Yeah, but that wasn't really the company's fault. But actually it was because I eventually did not want to do the job that I Yeah, I scored lah. Yeah. So I eventually left after 7 months, which is an incredibly hard thing to do, and there's a lot of guilt, and I still feel like guilt until today. So for example, like my boss paid for my uni, then like I don't believe in the work. Then I leave after 7 months.
No bond.
There's no bond, no one.
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought like I just had to make the decision for myself, lah. And if I spend my whole life doing what pleases the people,
I bet after that, the next one he signed, he
yeah, maybe
15 years.
Maybe I ruined it for someone. Yeah. but I was 25 and
yeah, I mean, I get it.
That was my thinking at the time.
Right,
yeah.
I see.